Welcome guys, this is Ultimate General American Revolution, and here are my pro tips. Construction materials are vital, so the first building you should build in every one of your settlements is the carpenter's shop. If you don't have construction materials, you're not going to be able to build all of the other buildings. So in every single one, even including things that have only got 0.1, like Fort Rice, in every single one of your cities and forts, just build a carpenter's shop. The next most important building is your school. You need these schools to produce junior officers, and you need junior officers to man your divisions. So after you've built carpenter's shops, build the school as your second building, preferably in every single one of your towns. You're going to need a lot of junior officers. And then once you've built your carpenter's shop and your schools, you then need resource producing buildings. So you've got the stables, and you've got the weaver's house, and you've also got the fur traders. So any of them three will do, wherever you can build them. Different provinces will let you build different buildings, so all three of these aren't going to be available in each province, so just build whatever's available. Money is really tight in this game, so the best way to earn money is to capture and sell ships. So to do this, you double click on a ship, it will bring this tab up, you then click this disband button, it gets transferred to your storage, you go into the market, click on ships, and then the ships that you've disbanded will be in here. So as you can see, if we sell a third rate, we get 20,000 gold. Not only do you get 20,000 gold, but you also get all of the cannons that were equipped to it. So that's about 56 cannons that was equipped to that ship. So if you sell 56 cannons, then you will get another 20,000 gold. So capturing and selling ships is an incredibly good way to fund your army. Expanding your territory is the next best way to earn money. So if we click on this colonies management tab, it will show you how much money each one of your cities is producing. This gets produced by the amount of population or workforce that are in each city. So the higher the workforce, the more money you will get. In forts where the population is really low, you are obviously going to get a really small amount of money. So as you can see, for taking Boston, we're getting 678 or 677 every single week. The next best way to earn money is to create these resource producing buildings, the pasture, weaver's shop and the fur traders. So they don't produce tons of resources, but they do sell for quite a lot of money. Now, we're earning 677 from Boston each week. But if we build a fur trader, then we can sell that fur for 550 per week. So it's almost as much as what we're earning from Boston's workforce. Now the reason that I don't put this above taking territory is because you're going to be wanting to build construction, buildings and schools over the resource producing buildings, because there's no point in having money if you don't have the construction materials and the schools for the junior officers to actually spend that money. So it takes a long time to get these resource producing buildings, which is why expanding your territory is a better way to earn money fast. Because finances are so tight at the beginning of the game, I recommend not building or recruiting any Fusiliers. Fusiliers are quite a lot more expensive than militia. So for each one of these individual companies, it costs 85 gold per week, where the equivalent for a militia company is less than half at 37. So you can have twice as many militia for the same cost, and numbers are quite often the way that you win at the beginning of the game. So as the underdogs, the Americans, you're going to have worse equipment and not much money, so you're going to have worse soldiers. So your primary damage is going to be dealt in cannon or by the cannon. So keeping your infantry costs low will enable you to recruit more cannons basically, and that is going to be your main damage dealer. The militia are basically just meat shields for the cannons. So if you want to recruit a cannon, it costs 100 gold. So it's a little bit more expensive than a fusilier, but it's obviously going to do some significant damage. So in my opinion, militias and cannons are the way to go. If you recruit a cannon on a fusilier unit, it actually goes up to 125 gold, so even the cannons on the fusiliers are 25% more expensive. So until you get your finances sorted, just play with militia. Don't even bother recruiting any fusiliers. One thing to note as well, that the officer requirement for fusiliers is 4 times higher than it is for militia. So for one militia company, so for a whole militia company, it only costs 1.5 officers, where for a fusilier company, it costs 6 officers. So 4 times more expensive in terms of officers. Surprisingly, the cannons themselves, which I'd imagine is a mistake, so it's probably going to get patched in the future, but the cannons units themselves, the cannon companies, only actually require 1 junior officer. So they're actually the cheapest unit in terms of officer requirements. So if you click on this tab here, it takes you to your supply network. From here, you can see all of the supply routes between the cities and the forts. Now, if a supply route gets cut, then you won't deliver any ammo or provisions to the cut-off city or fort. So try not to extend your lines. So here's an example in Burlington. If you were going up here, you take Burlington and then you take Fort Chambly, then these aren't connected, so this fort is not going to get any resupplies. So plan your routes out, try not to get cut off, and obviously the reverse of that is if you can cut the enemy off, then you will be dealing damage to them. So they're all going to starve from lack of provisions and incur desertion and disease. If you click on a city, it will tell you what the maximum camping capacity is. So here we've got 7,484. So if you go over the camping capacity, if you put more troops in than it actually lets you, then your troops will start to spread disease and you'll start to lose troops to attrition. So try not to camp too many men into one place for long periods of time anyway. It's okay to do it temporarily if you're just staying there to stock up for a minute, but don't leave large troops in places, especially in certain places that have got very small camping capacity like Fort Rice. It's only got 1,100, so it's easy to go over the camping capacity in certain places, and then you're going to start incurring large amounts of disease, like here in Fort Bennington at 728. When you start the campaign, there is an option in the character creation which lets you start with a warship. So I recommend taking this every time. It will give you the opportunity to start capturing ships immediately, and then you can start to grow your navy right at the start of the campaign. So in the very first week, you don't start off with a full complement of crew. So I recommend just waiting a week in Portsmouth so you top up your crew to maximum. This way, if you come across an equal ship size, you're going to have more crew than they will, and so you'll be able to board them and steal the ship. And what you're going to want to do, because Portsmouth is not easy to keep hold of, is to bring your ship all the way around to Newport, and then this is a lot easier to protect. If you lose the port, like I have done here, the ship will sail out and then it will get engaged in combat. So you need to make sure that your ship is docked in a friendly port. So start off with a warship, wait a week until you get a full complement, try to get all the way around to Newport, and try to capture a ship of equal size along the way. Also, try not to do any damage to the ship that you're capturing. You only want to use grape shot, because the ship that you're capturing is going to be the ship that you'll be using, as the ship that you are currently using is going to be sustaining damage during the fight that you are capturing the new ship. So, if you can, just take it with grape shot only. Try to take Boston as soon as possible. It should be the first thing that you try to do before you go anywhere else. So Boston is really good for giving you money. It's also good for giving you troops. And also if you take Boston, then you're not leaving an enemy at your rear, so you don't need to post any defences at your rear, so you can concentrate your whole force on the front lines. So don't fall for the Ticonderoga mission and ignore Boston. Make sure you take Boston out before you venture anywhere else. After taking Boston, my personal recommendation is to ignore Fort Ticonderoga and just take the penalty for not taking the mission. If you concentrate on going up the east coast instead, these cities will provide a much bigger bonus in the long term, both resource-wise and strategically, so you can actually put your ships in all of these ports. This will give you a good staging ground for defending against the inevitable naval invasion. If you went for Fort Ticonderoga and ignored all of these, then these don't actually provide hardly anything. You obviously get the resource for completion of the mission, but they don't actually provide anything in terms of constant generation, and you can quite often lose a lot of your troops, so it will delay your push up the east coast if you go for these forts. Not only that, but the enemy gets constant reinforcements which come straight down to Fort Ticonderoga, so it's hard to keep hold of them even if you do take them. You need to end up stationing men here to protect from the counter-attack. But if you just concentrate on going up the east coast, taking these areas, and like what I've done here, send your general over and just have a little peek to see what the garrison is in Quebec, you'll find quite often that this garrison will just abandon Quebec and come down here. I think it might be an event that triggers it, and in that case you can bring over a unit, it needs to be minimum 1,000, I'd suggest, because they do trigger an event when you get close to Quebec, which gives them a garrison, basically. So you're going to need minimum 1,000. Obviously, at this particular moment in time, you'd need a lot more, so we wouldn't be sending troops there at the moment. But if you have a spare minute to send your general out, or if you have a spare general not doing anything, just quickly go and take a peek to see if it's easy to capture, and then you can capitalize on the rewards that you get from the mission. Playing as the Americans, you're always going to have the disadvantage in terms of infantry versus the British. So cannons are your best friend. So never have a unit that doesn't have cannons in it. So what you're going to want to do at the beginning of the game is to actually buy these cannons from the shop. The shop's nearly always got more than enough cannons in for you to outfit your entire army with cannons. Also, one thing you can do if you want to go ultimate cannon cheese is the militia units don't actually require any infantry. So you could actually take as many cannons as you want without actually needing any militia. When positioning your cannons, put them on the front line. Don't put them behind militia or any other infantry. This way, when the enemy come close, the cannons will fire canister shot. If they're behind the militia, they won't fire canister shot. And canister is much more effective than round shot. So you will take losses on the cannons by putting them on the front line, of course, but they will trade much better with the enemy infantry than your infantry will with the enemy infantry. So use them as glass cannons, expendable units that can do extreme amounts of damage. Now you're going to want to prepare to protect them, of course. So put infantry behind them in case they get charged, so you can counter-charge, and then infantry on the sides to protect them from a flank. As you can see there, we've just routed 3 units, and all we've taken is 11 casualties on 1 cannon. And as you can see there, we just completely decimated an enemy unit, and it costs 3 casualties on a single cannon. So put your cannons in the centre, put them on the front line, put infantry behind and on the flanks. When you have an established front line where you're pretty confident that you're not going to get flanked, so these 2 units here, it's unlikely they're going to get flanked because they've got a unit this side and units on this side. Put these units on the cover, or hold it's called, sorry. Put them on hold. This will provide them with a cover bonus. So take it off and you lose 15%. Put it on, you get 15% cover bonus. This will obviously get them staying in the fight longer than if you just leave it off. It also prevents them from turning, like here. This guy's now turned his flank to this infantry that are coming in. Originally, he was facing in that direction, where he wouldn't have got flanked from either side. So it's good for cover and for stopping them from making silly mistakes. Try not to leave troops stationed in cities unnecessarily. You want to keep your army active at all times. So if that means leaving cities without a garrison, then that is what you should be doing. Now, you will lose cities by doing this, because the AI are programmed to do two different things. So, some AI are programmed to defend, and some are programmed to attack. Now, if you can draw out the ones that are attacking programmed, then you can kill them, and then all of the troops that are left on the map are just going to sit there and defend. So now we know that they've got some attacking programmed units here. We can go and destroy them. Once you've destroyed them, you don't need to leave any garrisons here. You don't want to be paying troops sitting around doing nothing. So if you garrisoned here, here, here and here, or here if you've got Fort Stevens, then you're paying for 4 units that are just sitting there doing nothing. And because of the way that the AI are programmed, they weren't going to be taking these settlements anyway. So you're just paying for no reason, basically. So you can cut the costs of your army by leaving your cities exposed, finding out where the aggressive enemies are, killing them, and then you don't need to protect these cities any longer. Some other ways to make sure your army's not sitting around doing nothing. If you've got a large army that you're advancing with, but you're waiting for them to replenish back up to full, don't be afraid to just scrap the ones that are low on health to top up the rest of them. This will keep your army moving. And in this game, time is your enemy and speed is the key. So you might lose some experience by disbanding a unit, but you will keep your army moving and continue to take territory. Now, if you don't want to lose the experience, what you can do is just keep your army moving even though they're not at full strength, and then at the start of the battle you can combine units. So if you have 5 units at 40 health, you can combine all 5 of them to get a 200 health unit. But sometimes it's just easier to just disband units and keep all of your regiments at full health. You can also, if you can find cities that have got troops in, so I think I started doing it here, you can use one officer as a dedicated runner to run troops over to your front line and then disband the troop. This is actually a Fusilier, so you probably wouldn't do it with this. But if you see that there's troops that are available, just create a militia, get the troops, run them over, disband them, you'll get your officer back. You can then find another city that's got troops in and keep doing the same thing. So it only requires one officer, because as soon as you get to the destination you're going to be disbanding him and getting the officer back. So this will keep your frontline troops replenished a lot quicker than sitting in a city waiting for the supply route to do it for you. And another way to make sure that your army keeps moving, use supply wagons to transfer ammo and provisions to your army. So what you're going to want to do, if you use forts, they come with a large amount of ammo that you can store in them. So here you can store 20 ammo in this fort. So click on the fort, click on this priority button. This will then start transferring the ammo from your storage into this fort. You would then use a supply wagon to collect it and then run the supply wagon over to your army once they've had a large battle. Obviously after a large battle you're likely going to have practically 0 ammo. So by running a supply wagon over, you'd be able to top them up immediately and then return the supply wagon, back to the place where it was refueling, which in this case is Fort Stevens, and then your army can continue on as if they'd just been sitting in a city for a week or two, which is how long it normally takes if you're not using supply wagons. A really cheap way to increase the amount of provisions that you gain is by using the Doctrines. So if you click on this colonies management, you have Doctrines here that you can use. Now you have to use it on a place that actually produces wheat. It doesn't work on places that don't. But as you can see, it only costs 0.2 to produce 0.85 provisions every week. So you won't even notice the cost, and you'll be gaining provisions. Now, most of these other things are very expensive, so I wouldn't really recommend using anything else until you've got financially secured. But the one thing that you can use is the recruiting. It's only a very small amount of troops, but for 2 gold, you can get 3 recruits a week. So after a week or two, obviously it's not a massive amount, but if you do it in every one of your cities, you can get another 100, 200, and it only costs 100 or 200 gold. Selling ships is the best way to earn money on the game, but you don't want to sell your ships until you're in a position that you don't actually need them anymore. So don't sell any of your ships until you've captured a 3rd rate. With a 3rd rate, you are capable of capturing a 1st rate. But without a 3rd rate, you're probably not going to be able to capture a 3rd or a 1st rate without a lot of supporting ships. So before I captured this 3rd rate, I had 6 smaller ships. I needed all of them ships to be able to capture this 3rd rate. Only then, once you've captured a 3rd or 1st rate, can you then sell the rest of your ships. And this is the point where you're going to start really earning lots and lots of money. Naval invasions can be intercepted with your ships. So this can prevent a lot of hassle, obviously. If you can sink a naval invasion before it reaches the shore, then you can continue using your army to actually take territory rather than having to come back and deal with a naval invasion. So there's a couple of different ways you can go about this. You can obviously try and sink it with all of your ships in one block, all of your ships together, but they can get easily snagged by enemy warships, and they can also get distracted by encountering enemy merchant ships. Now, if you split all of your ships up into individuals, then you're much more likely to be able to intercept the naval invasion, while other ships are the ones that get encountered with the enemies. So you will usually find that it does require a couple of ships to sink a naval invasion, and so you might have to catch it more than once. So here we've caught it once. We've actually caught it with a 3rd rate, which is really good. Obviously the 3rd rate's going to do a lot more damage than a 5th rate would do. So it's quite possible that this 3rd rate can take it out itself. But if it does manage to escape, then you're going to need other ships in the region to be able to intercept it. Now, obviously we can fight all of these battles ourselves, which will then free up the ships. But one thing that I will say is, only ever fight these battles if the enemy naval invasion is engaged in combat with one of your ships. If you try to fight the ship battles, or any battles, even if it's a land battle, if you try to fight a battle while the invasion is not engaged, it will turn invisible and you won't be able to intercept it. It doesn't stay invisible forever, but it might travel from here all the way to here. And so you're going to want to make sure it's engaged before you actually do any manual battles yourselves. So it's unlikely to intercept ships. He managed to survive with a tiny bit of health. Cities that are low on loyalty can rebel, and an uprising will occur, and they will take back the city and spawn a unit in there. So you can see here the red lightning bolt. So it needs to be above 40 to prevent a possible rebellion. If you click on, you can see it's only 17. If we have a look at Fort Pownal, it's at 47. So that's why this one hasn't got the red lightning bolt. So I've only just taken Madnaguk, and it has just rebelled, and they've taken it back again. You can see if it's a rebellion or an enemy unit by hovering over the icon, and it'll say uprising in locality. So to prevent this from happening, you just need to station a single unit. All it needs to be is a single company of militia, and this will prevent an uprising from being able to happen. Now obviously this is a pain, having to do this in all of the cities that you've got the red lightning bolts, but it's much more preferable than having to backtrack and take a city that you've already conquered once. So there are ways to increase your loyalty faster, but they're quite far down the path. So newspaper is one of them. It'll increase loyalty by 1% a week, but obviously you're going to be focusing on things like the college and the university, so it's unlikely you're going to get the newspaper. Now you can build a building, the church, but all this does is increase other loyalty bonuses by 15%. So if you haven't already got something that's producing loyalty, 15% isn't going to make any difference whatsoever. So they will automatically increase by 0.5% per week. So you'll just have to station a unit in there for quite a while, possibly even the rest of the game, because the game only goes until 76. But stationing a unit in there is much more preferable than having to backtrack. A quick couple of quality of life tips. If you want your units to station or garrison themselves once they arrive at the destination, just double right click on the destination. So a single one will just pathfind and spread them out and not garrison. A double click will send them straight to the location, but it won't pathfind. So they will cross things like this lake, which is obviously going to be slower than the pathfinding route, but they will garrison as soon as they reach the destination. And the next tip, if you want to keep your army in one place altogether, when you're attacking, then get eyes on the target that you want to attack. This will enable you to issue an attack order. Before I couldn't see them because they were in the fog of war. If you try to issue an attack order, it'll just spread your men out. Put all of your men that you want to attack with in the nearest city. Disembark with them all, and then just issue an attack order. This will then keep them all clumped together. Some of them are lagging behind because they're out of condition. But it'll keep them all clumped together, unfortunately, once they leave the city, it then spreads them out a little bit, so you've got to make sure you pause it and issue the attack order again. And then this way, when you start the battle, all of your men are going to be together and not scattered around all over the map. So obviously this one here was lagging behind because he was out of condition. But all of these that had the condition, they're all in a nice little block. You don't need to do loads of moving about at the start of the battle. These were my pro tips. Hope you enjoyed them. I hope they were helpful. And if you did enjoy what you saw, then consider dropping a like and maybe even a subscribe. Cheers for watching, take care, and see you soon.